Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, where we discuss everything in the wide world of baseball. I'm Ben.
And I'm Jeremiah.
And we are at, literally, I'd say there's 2 points in the baseball season that you get the most excited about. Obviously, opening day, because it's opening day. And then on the other side, you have playoffs, which we are in. Playoffs started last night with the American League wildcard game. We're going to be talking about that in the first segments here, between the Blue Jays and the Orioles. A lot of compelling storylines, a lot of questions to be raised as well. And then tonight we have the National League wildcard game between the San Francisco Giants and the New York Mets. We'll talk about that in segment number 2. We have a really anticipated pitching matchup between Madison Bumgarner and Noah Syndergaard. And then in segment 3, we will talk about the rest of the playoff series. We have one of them now with American League wildcard game last night set. That will be Toronto and Texas. And then in the National League, the Chicago Cubs are awaiting the winner of tonight's game. So let's lead off the show with the American League wildcard game from last night. We had the Blue Jays and the Orioles.
Yeah, and the Blue Jays won 5-2 in an extra innings off a Edwin Encarnacion walk-off home run, and that place went absolutely bananas when it happened. This was a fun game to watch. Like, this is why I love playoff baseball. Like, Jose Bautista had that home run to get the lead of the game. And then Mark Trumbo came up with the 2-run home run in the fourth. And then Carrero single to center to bring Michael Saunders in to tie the game at 2 apiece. And, of course, Encarnacion's homer came in the 11th inning for the game-winning runs, I should say. But that leads to this playoff matchup between the Texas Rangers and the Blue Jays. And we know these two teams have a storied history the past 2 years. Remember with the bat flip from Jose Bautista last year, and of course the Rougned Odor versus Jose Bautista fight in June. And this is something that's going to be real exciting. There is no starter for Friday's game for the Blue Jays as of now. Cole Hamels is going to start for the Rangers in Game 1. And that's going to be a fun series to watch in the American League Divisional Series.
Yeah, you definitely would expect maybe some fireworks, not necessarily some fights or people throwing at hitters, because in the playoffs, I kind of compare it to the hockey with the NHL. You can fight, but in the playoffs, you don't really see anyone doing that because you don't want to have any suspensions or anything. So maybe there'll be some fireworks. Maybe the crowd will get a little antsy at times if you have fans from both teams really close to each other. And I'm sure the players will definitely be motivated to beat each other with their history, but I wouldn't expect anything too big, because you have the threat and concern of being kicked out, suspended for important games. So, but yeah, as far as last night's game, when Encarnacion hit the home run, I kind of compared it to like Joe Carter in the '93 World Series, like touch 'em all, Joe, because Encarnacion hits a walk-off home run. I realized it was not a World Series game like Carter's was, but still to advance them into the postseason now. And he hit an absolute rocket. He hit it upper deck. As soon as he hit it, it was gone, and everybody knew it. It was funny because Matt Wieters was behind the plate for the Orioles, and then you had Ubaldo Jimenez, who gave up the home run and got the loss. As soon as Encarnacion hit it, you just look at Wieters, and he just like turns away. He's like, "Oh, well, okay, game's over."
We're out of here.
Like he knew it right away.
Our season's done.
And the same thing with Jimenez. He didn't even look. He didn't even turn around to look. He saw it and he was like, "Well, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna walk off the mound." So it's like he didn't even bother. Like everybody knew it was gone. And it was a great hit. So A lot of questions coming out of the game this morning, really last night too, in Buck Showalter's press conference. He's the manager of the Orioles, about how he did not play Zach Britton at all last night. Zach Britton only given up 4 runs all year long, and only 1 run since April. One of the most dominant closers of all time in a single season, really, and this season by far above anybody. He didn't even play last night. So people were critical as to why you wouldn't put really your best pitcher out there in some sort of situation. Really, when you look at a closer, he's going at the most 2 innings. That's if he's going quite a while. So it wouldn't have really mattered if you put him in the 9th or 10th because the person who was in there obviously shut the door on them. You could maybe question Showalter not putting in not putting in Britton over Jimenez in the 11th inning when there were runners on the corners with 1 out, like there was when Encarnacion hit the home run. So maybe you put in Britton at that time instead of Jimenez to maybe get a ground ball, have him pitch the 12th inning if it gets that far. So maybe you have that instance where you put him in, but I really don't think it's really justified as to why people are hating on Showalter for not putting in Britton in any circumstance, because the same thing could have happened, say he pitched the 9th or the 10th inning. The same thing could have happened, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I didn't really understand that the hate towards Showalter for that, but I think that Zach Britton should have at least been in the game at least once last night. Remember, this is a guy that was, honestly, he's one of the candidates for a Cy Young Award. He's been that good as a reliever. Like you said, Ben, he's only allowed 4 earned runs this entire year. So when these winner-take-all games, you got to play your best players. I got you there. And Zach Britton is one of those guys. I got you there. And if you can't find any situation or spot for him, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, what makes you? When is the perfect situation in a winner-take-all game for one of your best players on the team?
Yeah, the only situation I saw Britton really coming in last night that would have made maybe a difference as opposed to what already happened was if he would have put him in the 11th inning with runners on the corners. Maybe he gets a ground ball double play, and then you can have him pitch the 12th inning because he only faced 1 batter, or he gets a pop-up and then a strikeout, so maybe you can have him pitch the 12th inning to really secure that inning and make sure the Jays don't win it there. But, I mean, he's your closer. It's not like he's a starter where he can go 3, 4, 5 solid innings, maybe miss a start next week.
He's not like Madison Bumgarner.
Right,
yeah.
So it's not like he was totally there to go for a long time and just did not get called upon. That wasn't really the case. You know, he's going an inning or 2 at the most. So I don't think it's really justified. I get what you're saying with the whole, you got to be out there with your best players. If you're going to lose, I want to have my best person out there. And I understand all that. So the only instance that really would have sparked that in my eyes was that 11th inning with runners on the corners. Because say Britton closes the door in the 9th or the 10th, the other guys did that too. So it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, and I think I got to retract my statement here is that, you know, they're like, you got to put your best guys out there. But what I think what I meant to say was that you got to put them in the right situation. And like you said, Ben, that 11th inning was the perfect situation for practically your best reliever because Jimenez he's not really good. I'm just going to say that. And you can't really – that's why I said I don't really understand the hate towards Showalter because Zach Britton is not a starter. You know, like Madison Bumgarner a few years ago, he had probably one of the best postseasons of any pitcher. He's been historically one of the best pitchers in the World Series. I don't know if the Giants will get that far. We'll talk about that later in the show. So he's not Madison Bumgarner that can close a game in 5 innings. He's not that. So that's why I don't understand the hate towards Showalter for not putting him in. But you got to at least put him in the game when it really matters. And that was a pivotal inning in that game. But if I'm an Orioles fan, you got to be glad that Zach Britton is rested now for the season. That's all I got to say. Yeah.
Well, all the hate is going towards Showalter with how he handles Zach Britton. But really, the reason the Orioles lost this game is because they couldn't get a hit off Toronto. They had a 2-run home run by Trumbo in the 4th inning. That's the only 2 runs they scored. The last hit the Orioles got in this game that went 11 innings was by Manny Machado in the 6th inning. They didn't get a hit for 5 straight innings. So the reason is not because Zach Britton didn't go in. The reason is because they couldn't get a hit. They couldn't score a run.
Yeah, they couldn't hit. And I completely agree with you. Like, Marcus Stroman really played really good last night. He shut this team down when it really mattered. Even though he allowed that 2-run home run to Trumbull, the bullpen did really good last night. So, yeah, when you can't hit in the playoffs, you're not going to win at all. Despite how good you're pitching, like, you can have as many hits as you can. You just got to have the pitching there. So, yeah, that is probably to me, that is probably the stat of the game right there, is the Baltimore's hits last night. They couldn't even get a lot of extra base hits as well.
Yeah, I think
that was their one extra base hit, was that home run by Trumbull. That's probably their only one.
They couldn't get anything going. And then the other storyline to look at is in the 7th inning, you have an unruly fan throwing a full beer can at Yoon Soon Kim, the left fielder for the Orioles. It was the bottom of the 7th. There was no one on, 2 outs. A ball gets hit basically to the warning track, and Kim makes a routine fly ball out. But a fan throws a beer can right at him. It misses him, but obviously he's trying to distract him to make him miss the ball. You had Adam Jones being really vocal at the fans, screaming, yelling at him. You also had Jones after the game saying that the fans were sort of provoking him all night and saying racial slurs, even at Kim as well. So you have some unruly fans there. Hopefully, with their series now with Texas at the Rogers Center in Toronto, they can sort of, the police, the security can sort of identify people who are being unruly. Maybe there's a lot of alcohol involved, and maybe get them out of the game, because that's not cool.
Yeah, that is something that I really don't like. I don't like when, fans kind of disrespect players, with racial slurs and all that, because, you're there to watch a game, and the players are there to play the game. Like, there's a good saying here, let the coaches coach, let the players play, and let the spectators spectate. And that's what you have to do, just spectate. Like, I just don't like it, and that's absurd. Maybe alcohol was involved. We don't know that. I wasn't there to tell you that. But this definitely does it is going to influence maybe some jurisdiction there in the Rogers Center in Toronto. And yeah, I just don't like it. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, even Jones said after the game, if you're going to boo me, if you're going to say I suck, if you're going to hope that I drop it or yell drop it or anything like that, like, I'm cool with that. That's part of being a fan. But if you're going to take it a step further and cross the line with, like, racial, obviously Adam Jones, African American. So if you're going to go racial, if you're going to go ethnic on that, then that's where you kind of cross that line and you have an issue. But he was talking about, he's like, yeah, if you want to boo me, if you want to tell me I suck, if you hope I drop it, or like slip and fall, whatever, like, that's totally cool. But when you cross that line, that's when you have an issue.
Yeah, and like, if I'm at a baseball game and I happen to go to a Giants game, and they play the Dodgers, because I'm a Giants fan, I'm probably going to boo the Dodgers because, I don't like, the Dodgers. It's a rivalry. But I'm not going to call, like, any of their, members of that Dodgers team. I'm not going to call them by any slurs. I'm just not that kind of guy. I'm there to, because remember, these guys are humans just like us as well. So I don't like that at all, and I just don't like when fans, sports fans in general, act this certain way. It's like this in, not just in baseball, but it's also like this in every other sports at all. You see, like, fans fighting in football games, even in basketball. Remember that Ron Artest thing? That how that
the Palace, the brawl at the Palace.
Yeah, the malice at the Palace. Remember how that turned out? Probably one of the worst moments in NBA history. But yeah, I just don't like this at all. I don't like when sports fans do this at all. It's just, it's all I gotta say, man. Look. It's not a good look. It makes your fan base look bad as well.
Yeah, so hopefully the fan base will keep it under wraps there in Canada as they face the Rangers. That series set to lead off on Friday. Obviously, Texas is the home team with the best record in the American League. So that will be on Friday. Definitely a highly anticipated series with their history, and we will always be updating you next week on the show about all series, really. But with that said, we'll take our first break here at the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Coming out of the break, we'll talk about tonight's National League wildcard game between the San Francisco Giants and the New York Mets. So we'll be right back, guys, at the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. And we were just talking about the American League Wild Card game. Now we're going to get into the National League Wild Card game. And boy, what a pitching matchup we have going on tonight.
Yeah, Madison Bumgarner for the Giants against Noah Syndergaard for the Mets. Definitely the ace of both staffs. Bumgarner history in the postseason is well known. An ERA under 1 in the postseason his whole entire career. He's got 7 postseason wins, and he's only 27 years old. Only CC Sabathia and John Lackey are active players with more postseason wins. And obviously, they're well into their 30s. So Bumgarner on a good run right now. And in a one-game elimination like this, I don't think there's anyone in baseball, with the exception of maybe Kershaw, although he has struggled in the postseason, that I'd want to have on the mound other than Mad Bum because of his history in the postseason.
Yeah, and I said earlier in the last segment that Madison Bumgarner is probably, arguably, the best, well, historically, most recently, the best pitcher in the postseason because we've seen it 2 years ago. And, man, what a postseason that man had. And you can't ask any better than this in a winner-take-all game. You got Syndergaard, and you got Bumgarner. You got a team that has an even-year conspiracy going on in the Giants, and you got a team that's they were the first team to clinch the wild card in the Mets, and they were kind of hot into this game. But both teams were kind of hot into this game also because remember the Giants swept the Dodgers to get here, and the Mets, they played well as well. So you can't ask for any better story than tonight. Remember, the Mets were in the World Series last year, so these is a matchup of the past 2 National League representatives in the World Series. So we're going to find out if one of these teams can get back there again. Obviously, both of them can't get there because there's only one team. But yeah, you can't ask any better matchup than this tonight.
Yeah, both teams have the same record at 87 and 75, but the Mets have the tiebreaker edge, so they do have the home field advantage, which I think is really important because you have the Giants going West Coast to East Coast. You have sort of a drag on them. Citi Field is more of a pitcher's ballpark. The Giants, although they have been opportunistic as of late, their bats are not nearly as good in my eyes as the Mets. But yeah, you mentioned the Giants. They have this hashtag believe in.
Yeah.
And the EVEN, even, is capitalized because of their even year sort of thing, and they're believing on, obviously making a deep postseason run. So you do have Bumgarner tonight, as I mentioned, which is a huge plus. I do give the pitching edge to Bumgarner because of the experience. For the Giants to win, I think 2 things need to happen. I think, number 1, Madison Bumgarner has to go at least 7 innings. Because I feel like if the game gets turned over to the Giants bullpen early, maybe 6th inning, maybe the start of the 7th inning, then I think they could be in trouble. I realize since they made the switch to Sergio Romo to be the closer, he's done pretty well the last few weeks. But all season long, whether it be Hunter Strickland, Santiago Casilla, whomever is there at the end of the game in that holding and closing role, they have really struggled. So I think if the Giants can get at least 7 good innings out of Bumgarner and not turn over to their bullpen too early, I think they'll have a good shot.
Yeah, and if that bullpen happens to get into the game in 6 or 7 innings, forget about it. We're just going to have the Mets in the, advancing because this bullpen still concerns me. Even though the Giants have made it to the playoffs, which is, I think it's the 4th time in 6 years, I believe. I think it's the 4th time in 6 years, which is very incredible by the way. But yeah, this bullpen really concerns me still. Despite, they kind of maybe took a little bit of a step forward the past 3 days, the last weekend for that matter, it still concerns me. And these pitchers on the Giants, say if the Giants win tonight's game, Bumgarner will probably pitch a really great game, which I wouldn't be surprised by that. They're going to have Johnny Cueto go game 1. He has to pitch 7 innings. Jeff Samardzija has to pitch 7 innings in game 2. Matt Moore has to pitch 7 innings. So these pitchers need to go deep in the game for this team to make a deep postseason run. I think they have the pitching to do it, but, pitchers get worn out nowadays when you have the schedule that, the teams go through. But I do think Bumgarner will pitch 7 innings in this game because I just can't write off his postseason history. And I think the Giants are going to win because Bumgarner's on the mound. I think he will get him 7 to 8 innings tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if he pitched a complete game.
Okay. I do expect a low-scoring game, I think, with 2 strong pitchers. I think the first team to 3 runs probably wins the game.
I think the first team to 2.
Okay.
I think it might be 2-1, 1-0. It's going to be that low. I do think one of these teams is going to have a really big hit. Like someone's going to hit like a solo home run.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think for the other thing, the Giants to win, I think that would be really important, is I realize they're not going to have Eduardo Nunez with the hamstring injury. He's left off the roster, so he's not going to be playing tonight. So they're probably going to have Connor Gillespie over there at third, which they had for the Dodgers series.
Yeah, he's played really well too. Yeah.
So I think in order for the Giants to win, I think the one thing they need to do is when they get on base, which against Noah Syndergaard you would expect would be few and far between. So if they're going to get on base, I think they need to be extremely aggressive on the base pads. Noah Syndergaard has been criticized for having a really slow delivery time. He gave up 48 stolen bases this year. That's the most in the league, in all of baseball. So there's opportunity to run against Syndergaard. You look at the Giants, Nunez is their best person on the base pad, so he's not there. But you have people like Pagan, you have Denard Span, you have Hunter Pence, all guys who are capable of running and stealing bases. So I think when the Giants get a single, maybe with an out, maybe no outs, I think they need to be really aggressive on the base paths and try and turn those singles into doubles by stealing bases. Because the Giants don't have great hitting on paper. They don't have one guy over 300. They did pretty good against the Dodgers this weekend.
Yeah, they don't even have a guy with 20 home runs.
Right, so you can't expect them to go in and get 10 hits off Syndergaard. I just don't see that happening.
No, you can't. And I don't expect the Mets to get 10 hits off of Bumgarner. That's
right.
Just how good these pitchers are.
So I think when the Giants get on base, I think they need to be aggressive and try and steal bases because all it takes is if you have a guy in second is one hit to bring in a run. And those hits could be tough to get against Noah Syndergaard without really good hitters on paper for the Giants. So I think they need to be aggressive on the base pads. I think Bumgarner needs to go 7 innings. And it's really, really hard to bet against Madison Bumgarner in the postseason. So that's why, and the Giants really, Bruce Bochy's never lost a playoff series with the Giants.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take the Giants because they just have that experience. Think about some of these guys that were there 2 years ago in that wildcard game against Pittsburgh. You have Brandon Crawford who hit a grand slam. You have Posey. You have Bumgarner on the mound. Pence out there in right field.
Angel Pagan was on that team
right,
also.
So
yeah.
I'm going to take the Giants. I think they just somehow find a way to win because that's what they've done every year they've been in the postseason within the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, and that's why I picked the Giants to win this game because you got Bumgarner on the mound. Probably, in most recent memory, the best pitcher in the playoffs so far, most recently. And they play small ball, like you just explained, and they're probably going to be aggressive with the base pads, which I expect them to. They play the game they want to play. They play small ball. They get like a single there, they steal a base, and then they score that guy in. That's why they got here. They started playing baseball the way they want to play it the last week. That is why they got to this wild card game. And if they happen to get the right hits at the right time, which I think they could, we've seen the Giants in the playoffs this past decade when they were in the postseason. They do things that they want to do. They play it their way, and they have the pitching to win these low-scoring close games as well. So that's why you can't ride the Giants off right now. And I have to pick them because of recent history, the team, the experience, and the pitcher on the mound tonight. You just can't count out the Giants off at all.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you tonight. I think the Giants obviously win. Regardless of who wins, they will be taking on the Chicago Cubs, who had the best record in all of baseball. For the Cubs, I think the Cubs need to be rooting for the Mets tonight because the Giants are the one team who starting pitching-wise can match what they're bringing. You have Cueto, Bumgarner, Samardzija, Matt Moore, those four. And then on the Cubs side, you have Arrieta, you have Lester, you have Kyle Hendricks, and then whomever they go with between Hamill or Lackey. I would probably lean towards Lackey with the experience. But those four, I think, are better than the Giants staff, but the Giants have that best staff below them to match up with them starting pitching-wise. So that'd be really important, and I think the Cubs will definitely be rooting for the Mets tonight.
Yeah, and I was actually on Twitter the other day, and I said that the Giants are probably the team in the National League that most likely bring the Cubs in trouble. And I just got reactions saying, oh, well, the Cubs have 103 wins. They beat everybody, they dominate everybody. I'm like, well, on paper, yeah, they have a better lineup. I'm not going to argue with that. The pitching, yeah, it's a little bit better. But the Giants, come on now, you see what this rotation has done the past couple of weeks to get here. And we've seen what they have done in recent memory when they're in. When they are in the playoffs, when they're in the tournament, they're hard to beat. Even like the 2012 World Series run, they were on the verge of being eliminated twice. Remember, they were down 2-0 to the Cincinnati Reds in the NLDS. They won that series 3-2. And the Cardinals, they were down 3-1. They won 4-3. So no matter what, you just can't count this team out. And I know the Cubs are a much better team than the Giants will potentially face in the playoffs past, but they can match up well with them. And like I said, the Giants play ball the way they want to play ball in this time of year, and they have the pitching to dominate the Cubs' good lineup.
Exactly. That's why I think it's the one team the Cubs do not want to see. But obviously, none of that matters if they don't win tonight. So we'll have to see how that plays out, and we will obviously be talking about the series on our show next week. It sucks that we have to sort of wait a week with all these games going on.
I wish we did like 2 this week.
But it is what it is.
It's just the schedule that we have.
Yeah. So we're going to take our last break here at the GSMC Baseball Podcast. After the break, we will preview the other series in the American League and the National League to end the show. So with that being said, guys, we'll take our last break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
I want to talk to you about compression gear. Compression gear is popular with professional and amateur athletes everywhere to prevent injuries and for helping heal injuries. Sleeves has the coolest collection of compression gear around. Sleeves carry sizes for women and men as well as kids. Get compression sleeves in over 200 designs to match your teammates and uniforms. Check out the huge collection of styles and sizes or order something custom for your team at Sleeves. Get 20% off, please. Free shipping on purchases of $50 or more when you use the code BASEBALLPODCAST. Visit Sleeves, that's spelled SLEEFS.com today. That's SLEEFS.com.
And we are back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. Going to be rounding home with the show here today, talking about the other series we have in the MLB postseason. It's a great time to be a baseball fan. We got postseason series to talk about. So as we mentioned, we will have Toronto and Texas in the AL after Toronto won the wildcard game last night. The other matchup in the American League features the Boston Red Sox against the Cleveland Indians. The Indians do have the home field advantage in that series with a better record, so maybe that'll give them a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, and on Friday, we have Game 2 of the Blue Jays and Rangers series. And then we also got Game 2 of the Red Sox and Indian series. But it will be Game 1 of the NLDS between the LA Dodgers and the Washington Nationals. Yes.
Yeah, so as far as let's look at the American League side first. So we did Toronto and Texas a little bit in the first segment, so I feel like we're pretty good and well-rounded there. So now we'll talk about the Red Sox and the Indians. Two teams that had really long winning streaks at one point. The Red Sox pretty recently. The Indians kind of in the middle of the summer right after the Cavaliers won the NBA championship.
Yeah,
so maybe you had like a little Cleveland thing going on.
Yeah. We did a whole segment on them. They were hot at that time. They were playing lights out.
Right. So now you have those two teams coming in, obviously capable of winning. You kind of have a little bit of a reunion in a sense because you have Terry Francona with Cleveland going against his former team that he won World Series with in Boston. So you kind of have his familiarity with the players, which could come in handy. I'm going to take Boston in this series, though. I just trust them more. I trust
in the series?
Yes, I trust their bats more. When you look at their pitching, they really just have Porcello and Price to really dominate as 1 and 2. But then after that, I feel like there's a big gap with Boston. With Cleveland, I feel like they're just kind of injured at the wrong time. A great team all year, but their pitching, which was so dominant, has sort of faltered a lot of due because of the injuries. And I just trust the Red Sox bats a lot more. The best offensive team in baseball this year was Boston. So I realize in the postseason that really slows down. You have to look at your pitching to lean on more. But I'm just going to take Boston because I think they're that one team, as opposed to Cleveland, who can come up with that really opportunistic hits, whether it be Ortiz, Dustin Pedroia, Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, whomever. So I'll take the Red Sox. I'm going to say 6 games.
Okay. I do have the Red Sox winning this series as well, but I have the Indians winning Game 1. I do because they are at home, and Rick Porcello is their best pitcher on the staff, but I do think that home field advantage in this type of environment, and it's Cleveland, so Cleveland is rocking right now. With
Believeland.
Believeland, hashtag Believeland, which is a great 30 for 30, by the way. I do think that home field advantage is going to be really good for the Indians, and I do see them winning Game 1, but the Red Sox are the better team on paper, and I think they're going to win this series overall. But this should be a really good matchup to watch. I think it's going to be a really good series to watch, no doubt.
Yeah, I definitely don't see either of these teams getting swept or even a 5-game series. I think it's still a competitive series. I think both teams have a good shot. I just trust Boston a little more. So on the National League side, obviously the Cubs are awaiting the winner of tonight's game. But in the other matchup, we have the LA Dodgers going in to Washington, D.C. to take on the Nationals. And if the wild card game matchup was a good matchup between Syndergaard and Bumgarner, we have another great pitching matchup. We have Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers against Max Scherzer of the Nationals.
Yeah, and you can argue that this can be the best pitching matchup, in the entire playoffs so far. But I think the reason why Bumgarner and Syndergaard could be the best one because it's a winner-take-all game. But this is a really great pitching matchup, no doubt, nonetheless, between the LA Dodgers and the Washington Nationals. So this is a very important game for Kershaw right here because we know about his recent struggles dating back to last year and the year prior to that. So we know about that. And this is an important game for him to get back on track because remember, I think this is going to be one of the first full games Kershaw is going to be handed the keys for for no reason because he's Kershaw. And he was hurt this entire majority of the second half due to that back injury, and it came back late in September. So this is going to be a huge game for the Dodgers. They get Kershaw back to full strength finally, and with him being kind of rested in a way, we're going to see maybe if that worked to have a fully healthy Kershaw against a really good Washington National lineup. This is going to be a real good, fun game to watch, and the winner of the series, it's tough for me to pick this one because either of these teams can win, but I think I'm going to go with the Dodgers in this series. I think they're going to try to win for Vin here. I think they're going to try to win for Vin.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think if the Dodgers are going to win this series, they absolutely have to win. Maybe if it goes 7 games, you have 3, but at least both of Kershaw's starts. So probably Game 1, Game 5, who knows, maybe Game 4 if they put him on short rest. But I think they definitely have to win both of Kershaw's starts. Because if they don't win when their best player is out there on the mound, you're in trouble. Their other pitchers, not necessarily too great. I realize they've been doing really well. Rich Hill's done great since coming over from Oakland in the trade deadline. But can you really trust a guy in the playoffs as opposed to the regular season? You don't really know. You don't know what he's going to bring. Probably going to be pitching on the road, at least at the beginning part of the series. The Nationals are the home team. You have Scherzer. Maybe Zimmerman, but other than that, you don't really have much either because you have Strasburg out. So that's a big loss. So, both these teams are really capable. I feel like they're in really similar situations, like one surefire dominant pitcher that is going to go out there and deliver. But after that, I feel like it's kind of a crapshoot. So I think the team that can maybe win the matchups between the horses, Kershaw and Scherzer, is going to come out on top in this series. I got to believe Kershaw throws a good game. He struggled in the postseason, but last year he was really good. He was really good in the postseason. But I'm going to go with the Nationals because I really can't trust the Dodgers. They just seem to always lose the first series of the postseason. I'm going to take the Nationals just because of history.
Okay, and that's completely fair. So these two teams are so similar. That's why I said it was so hard to pick. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Washington Nationals win this game or the Dodgers win this game, because the reason why I picked the Dodgers to win this series is because I do think they're going to start this series 1-0 with Kershaw. And I think Kershaw is going to pitch a really great game. He needs to, because that's been the one knock on his career, his postseason struggles. That's only been the one knock. He has multiple Cy Youngs. He has an MVP award. He's had a great career up to this point. But that's been the one knock on him, is to pitch well in the postseason when it really matters. And he's not a World Series champion, unlike Bumgarner, who is a 2-time World Champion.
Yeah, so like you said, I think it's an important game for Kershaw. I think it's a more important game for the Dodgers than the Nationals, because the Nationals have the home field. Kershaw is that. I realize Max Scherzer is a dominant pitcher, a good pitcher, but he's capable of giving up runs. Kershaw's that one guy who you know is going to go out there and should shut the door down completely. So I feel like if they lose when he's going out there and pitching, it spells trouble for the Dodgers. You like the Dodgers, I like the Nationals. Obviously, one of us is going to be right, one of us is going to be wrong. But
we can both be right or wrong. No one wins. I'm kidding. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, we'll have to update you as it stands. As you said, the first game in that series is going to be on Friday. So those two studs, those two aces out there on Friday in Washington. That game is 5:38 Eastern time on FS1, so 2:30 out here on the West Coast. So we'll have to wait and see.
What about the Toronto and Texas series? Who do you have winning that series?
I gotta like Texas. I feel like they've been the best team in the American League all year. I think Boston's playing a little better now, but at the whole year, I think Texas has been that best team. With their lineup, with the additions they made at the trade deadline, with Lucroy and Beltran. Cole Hamels, who's pitching Game 1, has had a really solid year, sort of a comeback year where he's kind of struggled since he hasn't been that guy he was when he was in Philly when he won the World Series. So I gotta trust the Texas Rangers a lot more than the Toronto Blue Jays. I realized last year it was Toronto who came out on top, so I'll go with Texas.
Yeah, and Texas is a lot better team this year than they were last year. They've been more consistent. They have a better lineup as well. They made some really big trades, and they just basically have a better pitching rotation. So I see Texas winning this game in 5.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Really?
I think in 5. Yeah.
Okay, right off the bat, you give Toronto one game. So
yeah, and don't get me wrong, Toronto they played great last night. They have a really good team, but they struggled towards the end of the season. They almost didn't make it. They needed till the last day to make the postseason. So. And Texas have been consistent all year.
Right, so that is why I give the Rangers the edge. I do expect them to come out on top because of that. I feel like they've been the best team in the American League all year. So.
Okay, and then one final potential series. I know it hasn't happened yet. The Cubs, they're either going to play the Mets or the Giants. So if the Cubs play the Giants, who do you see winning that series? Do you see the Giants or the Cubs?
I got to go with the Cubs. Either the Mets or the Giants. I think if the Giants get in there as opposed to the Mets, I think they give the Cubs a lot better of a series. I'd say if it's the Giants and the Cubs, I see it going at least 6 games. I could say maybe even a 7-game series. Every game they've played this year has been decided by 1 run. So both teams are really capable of winning. I realize it's not as many games, but still, a couple of series there are only decided by 1 run every game. That's really important. So that means you're just kind of have to be opportunistic at the time. I think if they play the Mets, I think it's going to be a landslide. I'd say I'd say maybe like 5 games. But I feel like if the Giants get in there, given their history, given their leadership, and their starting pitching, they can really challenge Chicago, which hasn't been challenged all year for the most part.
Yeah, and if the Cubs play the Mets, I'm giving that series to the Cubs, probably in 5 games. Potentially maybe 4. That's why I think they're that much better. But if the Giants, I'm going to go on a limb here, and I say the Giants beat the Cubs in the postseason.
Is that you being a fan, or
no,
is that you being an analyst?
Both.
Okay, well,
both.
At least you're being honest.
Both. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be too much of a homer here, and I'm not going to say I'm picking the Giants because, I'm a fan. No, I legit think that this team can really beat the Cubs in the postseason. I've been so down on the Giants before. I didn't think they were going to make the postseasons at all because of that bullpen, and they just couldn't hit. But they proved me wrong right there, and this is a team that constantly proved me wrong the whole entire year, even as a fan. And they do have the pitching rotation to contend with the Cubs, and I know the Cubs have 103 wins. They've been the best team in baseball. They got like 3 Cy Young. They got 3 MVP candidates. If you count Hendricks, he can possibly be one. He's not going to win one, but he's up there. He's had that kind of year. I do think this is a team that's really gets hot at the right time. That is the San Francisco Giants, and they have a really great rotation too. You got Bumgarner, who's been really great, and they're probably going to pitch Bumgarner short rest when needed to. So I think this game is going to go pretty much the full slate of games. But if it doesn't go the full slate of games, like it's a 10-2, then the Cubs do have more of a shot winning. But if it goes to like a full series, then the Giants can pull it out. Because Bochy has not lost an elimination game as a Giants manager in the playoffs. So that's why I give him that edge.
Yeah, it's definitely with the experience-wise, you got to go with the Giants' history. The Cubs last year were pretty good, but then they lost in the NLDS. But still, you got to give the experience edge to the Giants. And that's why I think if they get in there, I really expect 6 or 7 game series. But I got to go with the Cubs because they've been so consistent all year. The Giants, really good the first part of the season, then really, really bad at the tail end. So
they had the best record at one point of the year.
Right. They had a better record than the Cubs at the All-Star break.
They
so
did.
That shows you just how good this team is capable of being. They just have to consistently perform, which they haven't done the second half of the season. But, no, all that doesn't matter if they don't win tonight. So, with that being said, we're going to end our show. I hope you have a great, great day. Hope you watch a lot of great baseball.
And we'll be back next week with some more playoff talk.
Yes, so signing off here at the GSMC Baseball Podcast, I'm Ben.
And I'm Jeremiah.
And we are out of here. Have a good day, guys.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.